Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Ask Sharifah. And something tells me this interview is going to be a lot of fun. And let me tell you why. Because if you watch Ask Sharifah's interviews, and I know you all do, you would have seen an interview with Mr. Larry Johnson. And Larry Johnson spent the entire interview talking about Meagan Johnson. And I have to talk to Meagan Johnson. Everybody loves Meagan Johnson. So I said, you know what? Let me go over there and talk to Meagan Johnson. So we have the honor of speaking with Ms. Meagan Johnson today, and she is an expert in generational challenges. How are you doing today, Meagan?
I am Sharifah, and I'm so excited to be talking to you today. This is a great way to wrap up Tuesday.
Absolutely. I know it's going to be fun, because your energy already is a lot of fun. But when I read someone who's an expert in generational challenges, I've heard of generational challenges, but I must admit, I've never met anyone who has made a career out of generational challenges. So please, what exactly are generational challenges?
It's funny you said about making a career. My assistant, who is a high schooler, she said to me, "You've really made a career out of just talking a lot."
I thought that was only me. That's what I say. I was blessed with the gift of gab, and that's why I talk to people all day.
Right. I said, I guess I have.
So how did you do that? How did you come to make a living out of just talking to people?
Well, I graduated from Arizona State University in 1993.
Okay.
And those of you who are listeners and watchers who are old enough to remember, in 1993, we were in the middle of a big recession.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it was looking pretty dire for college graduates. There were all these stories of how college graduates couldn't get jobs, and it's sort of like take your college degree and use it for kindling because you're going to be homeless.
Right.
But I was lucky enough to have a recruiter, Quaker Oats, come onto campus. And it was actually the first and only interview I did post-college graduation for Quaker Oats. And I was offered what everybody called an incredible opportunity, an amazing job. It was for the time and the economic situation, it was paid well. I got a company car. It was a Plymouth Acclaim. I wasn't excited about that, but okay. But I was supposed to be over the moon about this job. And don't get me wrong, I was really excited. I knew that I had really luck played a big part of me just getting this job opportunity. So I was very excited to have this job opportunity. But once I started the job, it was much different than I had imagined. My entire career, I'd always worked part-time retail jobs, the clothing stores in the mall. I really enjoyed that because it was high people, lots of energy, lots of, you put in the time, you put in the hours, you were rewarded. And then I start working in this corporate environment. It was totally different, the corporate environment. And then you add, my managers were two men about my dad's age. So baby boomers, they're baby boomers. I'm a Gen Xer. Gen Xers were born between 1965 and 1980. Baby boomers were born between 1946 and 1964.
Okay.
So I had these two baby boomer bosses, and everything that made me successful in the retail environment, which was high creativity, lots of just sort of enthusiasm, looking a little different, just kind of a little bit edgy, that didn't play well in the corporate environment.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that was Quaker Oats' fault. I think maybe could have done a better job preparing me, but also my fault too. I was young. So that was my sort of my entrance into the corporate world. And I spent 3 or 4 years working in the corporate world, working for grocery manufacturers like Quaker Oats and several other competitors in the sales arena. And everywhere I went, people were talking about how difficult it was to work with Generation X. Generation X was demanding. Generation X wanted to bring their dogs to work. Generation X, they didn't want to pay their dues. And I thought, well, I'm willing to pay my dues. I'm willing to go above and beyond. Where is this disconnect? Because I feel a lot of frustration from my bosses that they only see interacting and training me one way. So there was a disconnect. And it's funny for me, and I look back on it now and I think, oh my goodness, I was so young. I was so mad because at the time I had, remember this is the early 90s. I had huge, big Julia Roberts, with that movie where she was the hooker, all that, all this incredible hair. And my boss told me, you know, you really need to pull it back. You need to look more mainstream. And I thought, what does that have to do with my job performance?
Right.
So that was sort of what spurred me into wanting to talk to organizations and corporations and associations about working with the younger generation. And I always tell audiences today, I tell them, you know, back in the 90s, I was the younger generation.
Yes.
That's not the case anymore. And generations have changed. But what has not changed is that we often use negative words to describe the younger generation as it enters the workplace. And my Gen X peers and counterparts, we are just as guilty as those baby boomers were when they were critical of us. We're just as guilty. And we complain about the millennium generation, the millennials today.
Yes.
So that's what got me started talking about the generations, is that frustrating experience that I had in the corporate world. And I thought there's got to be a better way, because I wanted to be successful. I thought, so young people entering the workplace want to be successful. I think sometimes there's where the disconnect is that we're not helping them. We're not putting them on the right path to help them be successful. And we're also not taking advantage of what they're bringing to offer in the workplace. So that's how I got started on this topic. I love this topic. And I like to tell audiences, I like it so much because it changes, it evolves, but it impacts us not just at work, not just in the corporate setting, not just in associations we belong, but also at home, you know, in our personal lives. So it impacts us in both in work and personal.
I love it. That was wonderful. And I'm gonna take you all the way back to the beginning. You as the college student, because I agree with everything that you had to say. I'm right there with you, Generation X. I'm, you know, right there in the middle. My first job, at least Quaker Oats is still around, so I'll give them that credit. But my first job out of high school was working for Trans World Airlines.
Oh, TWA.
Yes, right. So you're with me. Like, they're no longer around. So
I actually did a speaking engagement for TWA, and they couldn't pay me my fee, but they did a trade. I got 2 round-trip tickets.
Oh, so that was fun, right? So
I loved it. I loved it. I thought I was so cool.
You were cool, but imagine how cool I was. Because
I bet you were that.
18 years old, and I could fly anywhere for free, right? And so now when people, you know, obviously they're no longer here, and people are like, let's take a trip. I'm like, are we flying? And it's like, yes. I'm like, well, first of all, I'm used to flying free and flying first class. So now you want me to pay and go in the back? I'm like,
it's called the double F, free and first class. Yeah.
Free and first class. It's hard to admit, but I didn't say all of that to brag. You know, I didn't say all that to brag. There was a moral to my story that was going to lead to the generations. But I was 18 years old, right out of high school, went to work for TWA, and they were faxing people reservations, okay? Faxing. And I'm like, can we just email the people their reservations? And you know what they told me? They said, this is the way we've always done it. This is the way we will always do it. And I don't even have to tell you the end of the story. So,
if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Well, it was obviously broke because
is that crazy?
They're no longer here. So I wanted to share that, but I wanted to go back to what you said. When you were out of high school and you got the job that everyone said you should have been over the moon, there had to be something about you for that recruiter to just say, let me give her this position. I'm sure your friends were like, you got a car? I mean, you had to have put on some charms. I'm telling you, because again, I've been in this industry, in business for a long time. It was not just your resume. It couldn't have just been your resume.
You know, the funny thing about the car, because I remember, you know, especially my parents, my parents were wonderful people, and you met my dad. I mean, they put me through college. I was very lucky. I graduated college with no debt, because they put me through college. But I have always had a love affair with transportation. So I had a car at the time, I worked to support this car. I had this it was a Porsche 914. People that are car enthusiasts, they know that's like you've heard about the entry level Porsche.
Yes.
This is the entry level to the entry level.
Okay, but it's a Porsche.
It was a Porsche, and it was a little Targa top. The car was older than I was at the time. I mean, I worked to support the car. So I get this company car, the Plymouth Acclaim, and so I was like, well, great, you can sell your car. I'm like, that's not so great. I don't think that's so great. But that was the perk, was that you didn't have a car. And that was really, really hard for me, because I did sell my car because I understood financially that made more sense. You have a company car. There's no reason to have this luxury of this other car. But back to your original question about getting the job, we're talking about fax machines and all that sort of thing. I just happened to be that afternoon. I happened to be at my parents' house, and this is before everybody had cell phones. My parents had the big brick cell phone, but that cost $1,000 at the time. Not everybody had cell phones. So the phone number I put on everything was my parents' number, because there was always someone there. And it was I knew I would get messages, whereas if you're in roommates, you're never sure. But my parents' house, I knew I'd get messages.
Right.
So I just happened to be at my parents' house, standing by the phone. The phone rang. I picked it up. There was a recording. Quaker Oats is coming to campus. Would you like an interview? Push the number 1 for yes, number 2 for no.
Wow.
I was like, 1. Sure. Yes. Yes, 1. And so that's how I got the interview. And when I was going to college, I really struggled with what to major in. And I was a journalism major. And I remember talking to my dad. And again, as I said, we're in the middle of this recession. And I remember talking to my dad, and I said, I'm worried about being a journalism major. They're not getting jobs. And I'm thinking about switching to be a business major, but that's going to mean I'm going to have to retake some classes. It's going to cost you a little more money. And my dad, you met him, he's super supportive. He's like, do what you got to do. No problem. And the only reason I got that phone call, that automated phone call, is because I was a business major. I later found out from my district manager. He said, yeah, I just said, send out the message. He goes, when you come on campus, you can fill out a form. I said, just send it out to all the business majors. So it was truly, in some ways, very lucky. I just happened to be a business major. I happened to be standing at my parents' house when I got
No, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to disagree with you, Meagan, because you just proved my point. And my original point was there had to have been a lot of people who interviewed for that position. I mean, I'm sure everyone who was afraid of being homeless was like, I want this position. So they sent out this mass phone call to every business major. So there had to be a lot of business majors in your college. There had to be. I mean, it wasn't just you and Adam. You know what I mean? There were a lot of people who received this call or this message, or maybe their roommates lost it or whatever. And that, you just happened to be there. And that was wonderful that you received your call. But there are a ton of people that didn't get the job.
That's true. You know what? And again, this goes back to my parents. They were so good in giving me advice. Both of my like many Gen Xers, both of my parents worked. I really prepared, and the nice thing is what I prepared in researching Quaker Oats. And I had lists of questions that I wanted to make sure that when I went into the interview, I had the right questions to ask. The benefit to that experience is really, now as a professional speaker, it really has taught me how to personalize programs and personalize my speeches for all my clients. But I think I went in there really prepared and demonstrated to the people from Quaker Oats that I had researched them and that I was showing interest in the position by asking them some thought out questions. I also called somebody that knew the district. So she was the regional. She wasn't even the district manager, the regional manager. I found out somebody knew somebody who nobody. Called the regional manager. I asked about this woman that was going to be interviewing me. And she said to me, she is one tough cookie. So be prepared.
Mm-hmm.
And she says to me, now this is going to date me. She says she likes the color of her pantyhose,
Mm.
to match her suit. So
Mm.
I wore a navy blue suit with
With
navy blue pantyhose.
oh, that is wonderful. See, you tried to give us the clean version. Oh, it was just luck, and I just had to, But you're a perfect example of opportunity meets preparation, and that's really what we want to teach all the generations: is that you have to be prepared. I had another interview a couple of months ago, and with somebody who's an HR recruiter, and he wrote a book on it. He was giving tips on how to get a job, and all the things, and he told me to do exactly what you did, except for I didn't know the person to call to help me about the pantyhose. But I was like, that's good to know, because when they ask me, that's why I work for myself, about a job, I just want to know what the salary is.
Yeah,
Like,
yes.
why do you want to work for Quaker Oats? I'm like, because you offered me $100,000. Like,
But that's not how much they offered me in 1993. Let's be real.
not in 1993, but that number sounds good right now in 2019.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah, but it's funny you mentioned about salary. I did not know what the salary was going to be until they called and offered me the job. And I mean, and I was like, yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it.
Yeah.
So different than the young people interviewing today.
Mm-hmm.
I think they have definitely more awareness of what they want out of their job.
Mm-hmm.
When I was 23, I just wanted a job.
Mm-hmm.
I think many young people today have a better sense of self and a better sense of awareness when they go in. And I think that's what throws a lot of HR people.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have someone who comes in and he's like, it's not necessarily the salary I care about.
Mm-hmm.
I care about, is our company environmentally responsible? I care about, is the work I'm doing significant? When I went to work for Quaker Oats, I'm like, okay, I got a job.
Right.
I'm making some money and I don't have to live with my parents.
Right. That's all you need. Just all you need. And all your friends were like, wow, how do they probably tried to get into Quaker Oats? No?
You know what? It was fun, I have to say, because everybody knows Quaker Oats.
Mm-hmm.
It was fun. It was not a fun place to work. And as I said, I don't think I wasn't a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
It's a conservative company. At least when I was working there, it was a very conservative company. And what had benefited me before, as I said, what worked for me before when I worked retail was not having a conservative personality.
Right.
So
I can tell.
It wasn't a good fit, right? But I'm sure you've probably been in situations like that where people are like, well, for you to be successful, you need to fit into this round hole. You're like, well, I'm not a round hole. I'm a bouquet, right?
Yes. I'm like that. I definitely am like that. And one of the things that I learned, through my corporate, because one of the last companies I worked for was American Express. So I've definitely been in corporate America. Work, like I said, Transworld Airlines was one of the people that helped build cheaptickets.com, the actual website. So I've done a lot of different things and been in different environments. But one of the things that I saw, growing as an individual was like early on, I was so impressed. I wanted to move up in management. I wanted to be a supervisor. And first, you have that little desk. And then guess what? You get that cubicle. Oh my God, you got a cubicle. And then guess what? You get an office with maybe 2 or 3 people in it. And you move up. And then one day, you get your own office. Now I work from home. And I have an office that I just visit like every few months. Like I don't care anymore. I just want to be at home, enjoy my life. So things change, as you go through corporate world and was it just me who kind of went through those stages? Can you kind of relate?
No, totally. Yeah, totally. When I started with Quaker Oats, we home officed. And this was in 1993 when home officing was still sort of voodoo science.
Yes.
You told people you home office, people like, you don't really work, do you?
Right.
But now you could say you can home office and people aren't suspicious now. Back in 1993, people were sort of suspicious. So in 1993, when I got this job with Quaker Oats and I found out I was going to home office, I'm like, well, that's kind of weird.
Right.
Why don't we have an office? I mean, that struck me as a little odd. But I'm with you. I mean, I home office now and I absolutely love it. But yeah, I've worked in cubes. You work in an office, and first you get the office without a window. Then you finally get an office with a window. If you remember that TV show WKRP in Cincinnati.
I love them. Yes, I'm from Columbus, Ohio. So
Yeah, then you totally know the show.
yes.
So remember Les Nessman and his walls? He put down the tape and stuff. So yeah, I totally relate with that. The office being a status symbol, which I think for many Gen Xers like yourself, that just isn't the case anymore. And for millennials, I have a little quiz when I'm working with my corporate clients. I have a little quiz to test your generational mindset. And one of the questions is about office space. And I like an office. It's a sign of status. Down to who needs an office? Can't we just meet somewhere that has Wi-Fi? We don't even need to be in the same room, right?
Yes.
So it has completely gone from one end of the spectrum to the other.
Oh, that's wonderful. You know what? Because I'm learning a lot from you. I did not know that Quaker Oats, obviously, your companies were doing that much as far as home officing back then. I tell people when I built my first website in 1994, I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. And that's the only reason why I built it, is I wanted to be at home. And my family told me I was lazy. It didn't have anything to do with how much money I made or anything. They just say, if you don't go to work, you're lazy. I'm like, but I have a business. I have a career. I'm making money. No. You have to go to work. If a man doesn't work, he doesn't eat. I'm like, okay, but I'm working. Like, you don't see me working? But it's just a mentality. And like you said, now to tell people that you're working from your home office, it's almost taboo to go into the office. People are like, oh, you have to go in? Like, unless you're a doctor or a nurse or, a school teacher and even homeschooling. But people do not want to go in.
No, they don't want to go in. Unless we're having a social function, there's no need to go in.
Yes, I love it. This is so entertaining. So let me go back to my list of questions I had. So with all that said, what made you decide to do this as a career? Like you obviously noticed the patterns, but when did you say, I'm going to make a career out of generational challenges?
Well, as you know, you interviewed my dad, and that's on that side, I was again very lucky because I knew about the speaking industry, that people spoke to audiences, and I like to joke, I'm kind of a frustrated actor. I did drama on that whole thing, but I saw what my dad did, and he got to travel and he spoke to different groups, and he took me on a trip with him when I was about 16. He took me on a trip. We went to Seattle, Washington. I think like when we landed, I think he took me shopping and then we went out to dinner, and I rented a movie in the hotel room and slept in. I'm like, this is great.
This is the life.
This is the life. Meanwhile, my dad is, down there speaking and working. I'm like, oh, this is terrific. But that's how I became aware of the industry, that associations and corporations would hire professionals to come in and discuss and share ideas and different concepts. But to talk about the generational topic, that really came on board for me when I was working for Quaker Oats, and we were having such a disconnect. Because back to what I said earlier, I wanted to be successful. I didn't want to disappoint Quaker Oats. I didn't want Quaker Oats to think we made a mistake by hiring Meagan. I wanted my parents to be proud, and I wanted to be proud of my success. But it was just, it was very frustrating. I didn't feel like I had a lot of success. I felt like, again, the things that had made me successful in the jobs I worked in the past. I also worked in the fitness industry. All those characteristics and traits that had served me well were not serving me as well in the corporate environment. And I thought there's a disconnect here somewhere, because I want to do well. I think they want me to do well because, they hired me, but why are we having such a disconnect? And part of it is, I'm not implying that it was their fault at all. Part of it was age on my part and not being able to read people say social cues. I call it corporate environment cues. I was not good at reading corporate environment cues. And one example would be, we had this huge district event, regional event. And again, I live in Phoenix, Arizona, and the event was held in San Diego on Coronado Island at the big hotel there, the big famous Coronado Island hotel there. so here's this, it's supposed to be this amazing opportunity. I'd never been there. The company's taking us, it's a meeting, and we get assigned roommates. Mm-hmm. So there's another sales rep there that I really liked her a lot. We said to each other, we'll be each other's roommates. We'll be roommates. We get to the hotel. We find out we've been assigned roommates.
Okay.
There might be other people in the corporate environment thinking, well, duh, Meagan, that's the way it works. Mm-hmm. I was truly shocked.
Right.
Like, I think my boss should have prepared me for that. I was truly, truly shocked that that's the way it was going to work. Mm-hmm. So I got this roommate that I didn't even know. Mm-hmm. I later find out she's reporting back to my boss about questions I'm asking or not asking her when we're like back in the room in the evening. Mm-hmm. And I just was like, well, wait a minute. It's 7:00. I'm
right.
watching TV. I'm enjoying myself. Why do I have to be asking specific questions? Mm-hmm. It was like those kind of disconnects. There was nobody there to kind of help me through that process. Mm-hmm. Now, other people might be saying, well, but it's obvious. It wasn't obvious to me at the time that I should be asking this person specific questions to me at 7:00. I'm back in the room. This is time to relax, watch some TV. That wasn't the case.
No, I love it because I think I'm gonna have to come down to Phoenix and just hang out with you and your dad because I'm part of the family now. Okay, because I can relate. And let me tell you why I can relate. First of all, I think it's cues, but it's also people don't understand the difference between policy versus culture. A company can have a policy, but their culture is completely different. And I worked for this company where we had to travel. And I traveled once with that company, came back to California, and I was done. I was like, I'm not going with any more trips. I'm done with this company. And I am known for just leaving a job. Like, this doesn't work for me. I don't feel it, because we're going to talk about that about you in a minute. I'm going to come back to that. But this whole trip, we went on this trip, and you thought you would have to pick, you would be able to pick a roommate. Mm-hmm. You know, I went on this trip, and I thought I was going to have my own room. Like, I'm not sharing a hotel room with a complete stranger. I don't even know this lady. Like, I don't want to be, that was unexpected. So that's why I'm giving you more credit for at least expecting to share a room. The lady didn't ask me questions, but let me tell you what she did. And this is I'm reliving the moment, Meagan. I'm reliving the moment. This is not offense to Christians or the Bible or anything, but this lady literally read the Bible all night. She was like, that's what she does all night. Now, mind you, in order to read, you need the light on. And I'm like, dude, it's like 11 o'clock at night. Can you put the Bible away? You know, I'm sorry, you know, all the people, but I was trying to sleep.
Did you say, no, Lionel Richie, this is not all night long?
That's what but the next day, I had not slept. I was irritated because I was in a room with her, and I was like, okay, I like the lady. She's nice. The Bible thing is cool, but I would have wanted a roommate where we could have went and got margaritas, you know what I mean, and came back to the room and went to sleep. But I didn't have that kind of roommate. And by the time I came back the next day, I was done. But see, that was me. That was just me. So I did have another question for you. Let's take it back to you, because I'm enjoying this conversation way too much, because I just want you to know I feel your pain. That if no one else in the world can relate to the pain that I was there with you. Okay, just remember, hold that in your heart right here, that I can feel your pain. But
if it looks like I'm walking, I am, just because I don't want to be rude to some people who came up close to me. So I'm just walking to a different location as we talk.
It's fine. This is live. That's why people watch. Hey, lady, is a lady. She's still
blaming me.
Hi, you're at Sharifah. So anyway, back to, this is cool. Like, I'm watching the whole, you out there living life. So this is cool. You are so totally cool. My other question I was going to ask was, you were talking about the cues, and that's why I wanted to talk a little bit about the millennials, to go back to what you were saying about the millennials, because with generations, some things that we experience and we learn, just like the baby boomers, the millennials haven't learned, or they see it different. Because one of the things that I see different for me is the baby boomers, they knew if they took a position, they would be there about 25 years. They would
Yes.
get the retirement plan. They would get the gold watch, the gold pen. They would get definitely, without a doubt, 100% health benefits. They were fully covered as far as health benefits.
Yeah.
So the millennials, and again, this is what I've seen, so I'm asking for your expertise on this, is with the millennials, they're like, you have to give me something to hold me here. You have to give me a company, like you said, that is doing something to change the world or doing something. Because if it's just a paycheck, I know that the longevity for a position is probably going to be about 2 to 5 years anyway. So what is going to make me stay here as opposed to going to this job across the street that's going to pay me double what you're paying?
Right. You made that point about baby boomers, and that is true. Baby boomers joined the workforce thinking they would have their entire career at one organization. Mm-hmm. And that really changed back in October of 87. Mm-hmm. If your listeners and watchers remember, October of 87 was Black Monday, the largest one-day stock market crash our country had ever experienced. Mm-hmm. And that stock market crash, which then basically was the beginning of that recession that I was talking about earlier, that, I graduated college during that recession. Mm-hmm. That stock market crash and the recession, it destroyed lifetime employment. Mm-hmm. So that's what really, when people complain about the younger generation not being loyal, mm-hmm. that began in 1987 when companies began to downsize, right size, began to let people go. So that started in 87. That is not something that's new to the millennial generation. Mm-hmm. But I agree. Millennials want to know what experience are you offering me here at this organization that I can't have down the street? Mm-hmm. Don't tell me my experience is a paycheck, because every company offers that experience.
Right.
What experience do I have here? And maybe the experience is that, hey, you know what? As an organization, we are very involved in the community. Mm-hmm. And maybe because I do a lot of work within the credit unions, and credit unions tend to be very proactive in spearheading community or charity events. So that's a real draw to millennials, that yes, I'm working here at the credit union. I'm doing what's best for the members, and credit unions like to call customers members. I'm doing what's best for the members, but also by working here, I am participating in maybe an animal charity or a feed the homeless charity or something else. Also, millennials want to know, and this is many millennials, I don't mean to say every single millennial is this way, but many millennials want to know that there's somebody there, an anchor at the organization that is as invested in them as they are in their job. Mm-hmm. And what does that mean? That means that there's someone there who is cultivating a conversation with me about my work, my job, my career, and the company. Mm-hmm. And so there's got to be either maybe one or several people that are there. They're saying, hey, what can I do to help you take your career from here to here, from point A to point B? And here are the steps that we've put into place. I recently interviewed a millennial. He left his job. He said there was nothing wrong with the job. The people were nice. The pay was good. But there was nobody there talking to me about what was next. What's the next step you're going to take? Here's what we have in place for you. Here's some plans that we have thought. What do you want to do? He said there was nobody had that discussion with me. And that's why he left.
That makes perfect sense.
Yes.
I definitely can understand that. Now, for you, with what you do, what is your ideal client, your ideal situation, your ideal experience? What does that look like for you?
I laugh. My ideal client pays me and adores me and gives me a cocktail when I show up.
See, you're Generation X. That's what's wrong with Generation X. You know what I mean? Like, we don't need the experience. You know what I mean?
Give me that cocktail. No. So I do speak to a lot of associations. Mm-hmm. I enjoy associations because they are a mix of people. So for example, later this week, I am speaking to an association. Everybody in the audience works in the food service in universities. So they're all in the university setting, and they all work within the dining and food services. Okay. And what's interesting about them is that they do, as a part of the university, dining and food services, they want to be profitable, but all their profits, in most cases, goes back to the university. So it's kind of an interesting twist versus your traditional, food environment.
Mm-hmm.
But I do speak to traditional organizations. I've spoken for American Express. You mentioned American Express.
Yes.
I would love, I just want to give my credit card.
Mm-hmm. I'll
But
talk to Ken Chenault about that. I'll call him.
American
I don't have
Express.
his number, by the way, for the record. I don't, but.
You what?
First I said, I'll talk to Ken Chenault about that. But then I said, for the record, I don't have his number. Let's just make that clear.
So, I recently spoke for Boeing, Harris Corporation. So I do speak for traditional companies. The nice piece about the generational topic is that it, as I said earlier, it strikes us not just at work, but also at home. So audiences in an association, I have some people giving me flack over there. People in the association world and also in the corporate world both struggle with this generational question. So my programs, I always do a lot of personalization so that the examples that I give the audiences, they're examples that they can take back to work and do the next day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want someone to be in my audience and say, well, that was good, that was entertaining, but we're not Google, we're not Zappos, we can't do that crazy stuff. So I always want to make sure they have things they can do immediately when they get back to the office the next day.
I'm going to wrap it up here, Meagan, because the people are giving you flack, and usually I do 30 minutes, but I was just having so much fun, and I got into my story, so we had 45 minutes, but I'm like, well, let me come back to the business that I'm supposed to have been talking about 45 minutes ago, but you weren't helping me, Meagan. So when do people typically contact you to speak? Like, what are they going through where they're like, I need someone to come in and speak to me and teach me and help me understand what my situation is?
It varies. Sometimes I have people contact me a year out, and I've had someone recently just contact me 3 weeks out. I always tell people, give me a call or a text or a tweet, and we always try to make it work. So people's leads time, it's funny, you have some people call you like 2 years out, and they're like, I know it's short notice, like 2 years,
right.
It's not short notice.
You're funny. You go back to Hollywood. Come down here to LA with me.
It always varies. So yeah. So we work with every client's time schedule.
Okay, so please, if nothing else, please give our viewers the best way to contact you.
The best way, if you're one of those old-fashioned people that like to pick up the phone, it's 1-800-759-4933. As I say that, I'm thinking I haven't dialed it in so long. I hope that's what it is. 800-759-4933. Or you can go to my website, Meagan Johnson. That's MEAGANJOHNSON.com, MeaganJohnson.com. And on Facebook, I'm Meagan Johnson, Generational Humorist.
Yes, I love it. I'm going to go like that right now. Thank you, Meagan, for being a guest on today's episode of Ask Sharifah.
Thank you. I look forward to hearing this when it's presented elsewhere.
You are so welcome. I get it over to you as soon as possible. To all our viewers, thank you for tuning in. And what I told you, I promised you, this was going to be a very entertaining show. So please make sure to share this interview, because friends don't let friends miss out on Ask Sharifah. So to be a guest or to watch more of our interviews, visit the website at AskSharifah.com. Everyone have a wonderful day.